Good morning. Good morning. Jabba the light will uplift.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for the delay today starting, but Brandon is in Los Angeles and Gavin very unfortunately and very suddenly turned 6. So I'm here today to brighten your morning wherever you are in the world. How are you all doing today? I'm afraid because I'm working from StreamYard, I don't have the comments. So let me just sort that out 1 second so that I can so I can see what everyone's saying. Okay, just in case there are comments. Oh, we've got Mandy in the house. Mandy, let's get ready to rumble. Blessed be to one and all. Thank you so much, Mandy. I am on an island called Gozo, which is in Malta in the Mediterranean Sea. So it's not morning here. It is actually nearly 4:30 in the afternoon. But anyway, how is everyone's morning doing today? I would love to hear what you have planned today. I have a lovely guest coming in today. Her name is Tina Harris, and she's an actress. She's an actress in London, and we actually know each other because we used to train with the same acting teacher who was from Los Angeles. And Tina, I admire so much because being a jobbing actress, as it turns out, is really very hard, and I struggled like anything because going to castings and this kind of thing was my idea of hell, basically. Mandy, it's just you and me. I love it. It's perfect. We can just hang out together. So you're going to love Tina. She's an awesome woman. And she's been in shows like Red Dwarf. And she's done some period dramas. And she's done lots of different plays and TV things. I will let you know when she rocks up. It's a very funny show today. Hi, Tina.
Hello.
Lovely to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
Looking very beautiful this morning, I have to say. Well, it's afternoon in London, right?
Yeah, it's 3:30 here. Is that right?
Yeah.
In England, anyway.
Yeah. How are you today? How's your day?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I did a morning. I was supposed to be writing because I'm a writer as well as an actor. This morning I was supposed to be writing, and I did a bit, but I got a bit stuck. So I went into the garden for an hour that turned into 4 hours. Because that's one of my guilty pleasures. I love my garden, so I've been. I won't show you my hands, but they're a bit. They've got soil under the nails and all sorts. So.
But isn't that a really good way to get into your creative flow by getting out in nature and doing stuff that zone.
Yeah, and there's a result. You put a seed in, you can mix the colours, and it always, if you look after it, it always grows. And acting's not always the same. You can put loads of work in and it can go brilliantly, but other times, your seed kind of doesn't really go where you think it's going to go.
That's what I was saying before you came on the show was that when I was trying to make it in London as an actress, I have so much admiration for you because of all the people, of all the actresses I know. What I would call a jobbing actress, someone who is working more than they're resting, is to me just so impressive because it's a very demoralizing industry. If you're constantly going for castings and not getting work, it can really break you down. So when I see that someone is just keep going and getting out there, I just think it's so impressive. So, we have Mike in the house today. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us. It's a cozy little show today because Brandon and Gavin are not here. Mandy just said hello. Oh, you're in England.
Hello, Mandy. Where in England are you? Is she going to type?
Sorry.
I've never had a live show with live comments as well, so it's
I
quite
know, it's great,
exciting.
isn't it?
I'm in Nottingham, by the way, not London. I've got a London base, but I do live with my family in Nottingham most of the time.
Awesome. So I was just telling Mandy of trying to remember some of the things that you had done, and you were in Red Dwarf. That's right.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah. That was great fun. Really good fun. Yeah.
And when you write, are you writing comedy or are you writing straight drama?
So comedy. So we started writing. There's a world we've been living in live. Myself, my husband, and some friends of ours for maybe 15 years, and we decided 5 years ago that it would really suit the screen. And a lot of our audiences, we've done it all over the world, in Italy, anyway, all over the world, and people just laugh and laugh. So we decided to adapt it for the screen. So the first couple of drafts we did kind of we're still in that kind of live performance vein, and we got some good feedback. And then actually someone from the Red Dwarf team mentored us for a while. And they're kind of comedy crime dramas set in the world of the 1920s in a Wiltshire village called Timely Overacting. And what should I say? Because I don't want to say too much about it.
I don't want to give it.
But we went through a long journey. We were with Baby Cow for a while, then we were with Red Dwarf for a while, then the BBC were interested, and we kept redrafting, rewriting, and they all wanted to do something different with it, either make it a daytime show, and there was a bit of saucy humour in there, or make it a 30-minute studio-based show, and we didn't want to do that. So when lockdown started, we kind of thought, okay, we're going to go not back to the drawing board, but over those first 4 years, a lot of new things kind of came out. So we went right back to our characters, and we worked for about 5 months just on developing the characters. And it was amazing what came out. We never would have dreamed. The show we've got now, we've got a 1.5 hour feature-length pilot that we're pitching to Netflix at the moment. And we never would have dreamed what came out of those people by just delving right back into their histories. We've got things like Buffalo Bill's Wild West show in there. We found out there were some race riots in South Shields in the 1920s that none of it we knew about, and it's all just filtered in and made these characters richer. And by enriching the characters, we've kind of more stories have come out. It's it's been amazing.
Sure. So you get some subplots going along. And so how did you do that process? Was that something you did individually and started researching?
Well, originally we started with the script because we've got about 40 or 50 live scripts that my writing partner's written by himself without me. And when we wrote the first few drafts of the TV show before this lockdown process, we just kind of added the character in, and each bit of feedback we got from the different production companies that were interested, we kind of changed it a bit. But this time we sort of started with very much with the characters, and I did some writing workshops, and there's a list of, and the BBC Writers' Room as well, and there's basically a list of character questions that if you answer, throw up all sorts of things. I haven't got them on me, but they're things like, what is your character afraid of? Who do they live with? What do they do in private?
What kind of toothpaste do they use?
Yeah, what are they afraid of? And honestly, what it threw up was just amazing. So many, if you Google like BBC Writers' Room, or there's so many great books about screenwriting and character development. And if you do, I feel that if you do those exercises, then just magic happens. And one of the biggest things is, who is your character? What do they want externally? And what do they want internally? So maybe they want money and they want it to support their family, but secretly they want it to be alive, to feel alive again, because maybe they've lived a life when they're in a very humdrum life and they've not been fully present. And it's just delving down. And you find that when you start to develop your characters, they're kind of wanting opposing things, and that brings conflict. And also the other thing we did is we put so many flaws in them. So my character, her mind works at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and she can be spiteful and competitive, but she's also kind and warm, and she loves an adventure. It was such a joy. So the first part of lockdown, I loved it because I was at home writing.
Well, sounds bliss.
Going for walks and just really enjoying getting into this new world that I didn't know kind of existed.
That's amazing. I love that. You've got your gardening world, you've got your writing world, you've got your acting world, and you've got your children and your family. It must be really, really rewarding. So if you were going to take what you did with the writing and you took that process into your work as an actress, and if you as an actress were to take all those things, what do I need internally? What do I need externally? What am I afraid of? How do you as an actress add those layers that make you well, I guess we're going into the fifth dimension now, so make you a fifth dimensional actress, or at least a 3D actress, so that you're with all these layers. Can you do that? Do you think you can do that?
This is about a 3-hour conversation.
Well, there's no one else. So.
I very much believe, which is what when we worked together, trained together at AMAW, like Anthony Mandel says, I believe very much that for a character, and I think a lot of all my favourite actors tend to do this, it has to come from self. And having done the kind of deep mining down work of writing a character-driven show, before that, I didn't actually realise how much the writer does. Obviously, they're inventing great characters and they're inventing great scenes and stories and dialogue, but I didn't know how much goes into even creating a minor supporting character. So I think, for me, it's about trusting that when I get a script, that if I bring something of me to that script, then married with what the writer's got, there's going to be something new in there and something that they haven't maybe put in there. Because I'm never going to know. When you get a casting, a self-tape, or in the old days a live meeting, you get a very brief character description. And sometimes I want to know more, but they don't always give you more. Sometimes you get the whole script. Sometimes you just get the scene. So you have to kind of fill in your own blanks, I kind of feel. And I do that work. I'll go through a script and I'll sort of think, okay, she's done this, this, and this. What else might she have done? But then when I'm actually auditioning or on set, I'll just try and be in the moment and really listening. Because if they've chosen me, they kind of see that there must be something in me that fits that role. So I don't like the prescriptive thing, which I did before AMAW and at drama school, of splitting everything down into, on this word I'm going to do this, and on this word I'm going to do that, because that for me just puts me in my head, and that's not a good place to be.
I don't think I could act like that. In fact, the things that I always enjoyed were more improvisational.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, this is going to be a subject that I don't know if Mandy and Mike are going to know, or anyone else who watches this, but there are different schools of acting. So in America, you have Meisner and method, and then from Russia, you have Stanislavski, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a while. So I trained predominantly in Meisner, and so with Meisner, it's all about putting your attention on the other person when you're acting. So because actors are generally very self-conscious, and we're always thinking me. So when you do this form of training, you start to go, oh, Tina's nodding her head. Oh, she's smiling. Oh, I can see her teeth now, and all your attention's on the other person.
Yeah.
And you forget yourself. And for me, this training was just so important, because, being self-conscious is obviously the hardest thing of all. So when you said you were about to, and I have to say, I feel your pain. Tina was about to take a part in a very big West End show. Am I correct? It was
literally half an hour from my stepping onto the stage for my West End first appearance at my ripe old age. Yeah, but it was fine, because it was such a joy and that show will hopefully come back.
So it got cancelled because of the lockdown.
Yeah, and
you had done all the rehearsals.
Yeah, well, we thought we were going to be only off for we thought we'd be back in April or possibly May, and I knew I was going to be going on again in May, because I was covering a role and I've never covered before, but I really wanted to do it because I loved the company. It was Jamie Lloyd Company, and I adore their work. And what I love about it is they work very much in the same way we have at AMAW. It's very much, it's done with head mics, and rather than, normally in a big West End theatre, I mean, I have worked in the West End when I was in my 20s, but only on off West End theatres. And I have worked in big regional reps, but you know how in a theatre you're normally going up and out? Well, Jamie Lloyd gets everyone to go down and in. And there's these head mics, and it was all done in a box. Everyone was barefoot. It was the Seagull. And it was, honestly, it was such a joy of a job. You know, when you get a job and it just alights something right in your soul, and it's just beautiful. And, we thought we were coming back in April or May. And then obviously, lockdowns carried on. It will come back at some point, but we just don't know when yet. Oh my gosh, Suze, you've frozen. Oh my God, she's gone. So am I on my own, or am I in the wrong place?
Good morning. Good morning. Java Delight will uplift you. Stay tuned. The show is about to begin. Grab your coffee. Stay tuned. This show is about to begin.
I'm so sorry. That
was hysterical. Suddenly I was talking and there's no one else there. And I'm like, God, it's live and it's going out in America. I'm like, shit.
No, it's all right. You said your one cuss word of the show. It's fine. No, it's a very children friendly show here. But that was just funny because today it's just been one of those days, where everything just goes wrong and you just have to laugh. I mean, this is theatre. This is live theatre. So yes, sorry, go back to what we were talking about.
So I think there was a question I saw flag up.
There was a question about stage fright. Mandy was asking, how do you deal with stage fright?
So I haven't had, when I was very young, I did quite a lot of theatre and I didn't get stage fright then, although I'd get a bit nervous. But then I had a big gap from doing theatre because I had my kids. And while they were little, I didn't want to go away. So I was doing mostly screen stuff. But then I went back to my first theatre show and it was at Lower Low up in the Lowry Theatre in Manchester. Well, it was amazing fun. And
Mandy might know that show because
Lower Low, I loved it.
And I should only say this once.
Yeah, I know. I loved it. And but because Vicky Michelle had come out of the show and she'd gone to do Panto and she was doing Emmerdale. So I was stepping into her shoes. So when we were rehearsing, the words were fine and the character was fine, but it was the moves because they'd set the moves without me. So I had to learn those and it took me ages because it's going from table to table. There's a blow up Hitler. There's all this stuff. And then I got really bad stage fright, but it was okay. I just breathed and went on. But then on the second show, I got really bad sickness and diarrhea. It was awful. And it's not through being nervous. I just got a bug. And it wasn't through, and I literally was going, oh, and then running off and being sick. And it was also a 2-show day. So in the gap, one of the guys in the show lived very close to the theatre. It was in the Salford Quays, where the Lowry, where they've got Media City there now, but it wasn't there because it was about 10 years ago. And I literally had to go to sleep in his bed and then go back and do the evening show. And yeah.
Oh, wow.
I find actually sometimes the first day meeting a company, I get more nervous about that. But then, an hour or so in, everyone knows each other and it's fine. But I do get more nervous about that, really.
Well, I suppose theatre is like life. Yeah. It's like going on a date. It's like meeting someone new at a party. And then, an hour later, you're fine. It's the same kind of thing. I think for me with stage fright, I think, Mandy, I would say for me, it's a delicate balance between nerves and excitement. And you have to get it kind of right. So me, practice, preparation. If you're a singer, I know because I'm a trained actress and a trained dancer, but singing I've only been doing the last couple of years, Mandy. So I'm with you on that one. And I guess for me, I would just say practice all the time, and know that, like with anything in life, the stage fright's going to get less and less the more we do these things, isn't it? I mean, Tina, you've done, I know, the first time you go and do a TV job, and I remember just, the amount of pressure I was putting on myself, and, saying all the wrong things because I was so nervous. And, but you've done so many, I was looking at your list, if we can bring that up. I was looking at your list on Spotlight and IMDb of all the different shows you've done. Does it get easier?
Yeah, and I think what you said about putting the focus on the other person is, that is the key. Because if you're especially on camera, if you're in a scene with someone, it's so intimate that it's just like you're talking to that person. If you look into their eyes, then you have no time to think about yourself, and that is the key. The key for me. I mean, during lockdown, some of the things I've done to keep creative is I've done American accent work, and I've done some other voice work, and some just running through stuff with a coach. And whenever one of them has said to me, just get something in the room like it's a person, so maybe my light shade, and as soon as I put it onto that light shade or something, then I'm forgetting myself, and the work is much better.
Oh, look, Gavin from his sick bed is doing some amazing things behind the scene. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Thank you.
Angel. So this is Tina Harris and all her fantastic work that she's done. These are her actors' headshots. They always make me giggle. Actors' headshots. Our comedy teacher used to say, about because I don't actually have a photo of me living.
My hair's a bit longer now. Thanks to,
a lot of things. So TV shows, Silent Witness. That's a BBC show, is it not?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And have you worked with anyone? I know that recently you've been working with quite a famous name now on TV.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want me to talk about it?
Yes. Tell us all about it. I don't know if it's already come out or if.
Well, I did 2 TV shows, one in December and one very recently. And the one in December is called Whitstable Pearl, and that comes out in the UK on May the 24th. And it's beautiful. It's based on some books by an author called Julie Bosmere, and it stars Kerry Godliman and a few other big names, and that was a delight to do. It was a very quirky character I played, who was a huge Dolly Parton fan, so that I was kind of very dolled up with big eyelashes and leopard skin and leather, and so it was. But she's very quirky. It was really good fun. And the other one I've just done was with Olivia Colman. So I met her, and she was the most delightful woman ever.
Really?
Exactly. Yeah, when you see her on the ground. I mean, I've never worked with her before, but I love her work. She's got such a massive range of work, and you see her on the Graham Norton show, and she seems good fun, and she was an absolute delight. She made sure everybody on that set, whether they were holding a cable or part of the scene, everyone was just a human being, which is what we should all be doing, isn't it, in our industry? But you don't always have that. We had a really good chat. We talked about the green room. We talked about the Tooth Fairy and Santa, and she talked about her family. Just really lovely woman.
Nice.
So, which was great. Really lovely.
And is that coming out on BBC or ITV?
I don't know when that's coming out, because that's still filming. But the Olivia Colman show. But the other one is coming out on May the 24th. It's on Acorn TV. I think the Olivia Colman one is HBO and Sky, so it might be in the States first. I don't know, but I should know where it comes out, shouldn't I? Acorn TV, I think it's coming out. Let me. I could check. I'll keep talking and I'll check while we're. while we're talking.
We love this.
Platform.
I love this live, natural, anything goes mode today. It's great. It does remind. To be honest, it does remind me of theatre. I was talking with Tino Orsini, who you also will know, who was my guest last week, and we were reminiscing about a play that we did at the Chelsea Theatre where there was a leak coming down from the ceiling, and they couldn't fix it before the show. So we just had to do it with the leak. And because I was in an asylum, I was playing a nun who goes to visit someone in an asylum. And I used that as the tension of like, oh, this place is really scary. So I would just stare at the drip. And I loved it because it's just that, you know, making, what do they call it? There's a name for it. It's a German word where if you don't acknowledge something when it's happening, the audience can't stop noticing it.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but I know what you
mean.
Yeah,
there's a word. So, for example, let's say I don't know, you knock a glass off the table, but because that's not part of the play, the actor just ignores it. Everyone in the audience is now looking at the glass, waiting for the actor to acknowledge it. I can't remember the name, but yes.
It's always better because, I mean, again, if you're listening with your ears and your body, it's nothing worse than if you see someone drop something, you're just waiting to see how they're going to pick that up. And they usually do, don't they? So.
Wishing it didn't happen. Did you find?
I haven't. No, all I can find is Acorn TV. So it must be.
Okay.
I don't know if it goes on to Amazon as well. I'm not sure.
Okay. But,
it's Buccaneer Media and Acorn TV. So I guess that's the platform, isn't it? Yeah.
We'll find out. And you can message me when it's coming out, and when I'm on the show, I'll make sure we flash up on the screen. Don't forget to watch Tina Harris.
Thank you.
The show, because that would be fun.
Thank you.
and so how did you get into the writing? Was it because of lockdown, or were you already doing things?
No, I was already doing it. So we'd had this. I co-written something else before that, but that didn't take off, and that was just meeting some actors at a different workshop thing that I was involved in. And we wrote that, and I just didn't know I could write because I did English lit at school, and I loved dissect. You know, obviously with my job as well, I love to dissect things and look between the lines at subtext and stuff. But I find that I love working with someone else. So, so we started it 5 years ago, and really during this whole lockdown, I've really, for the first time in my life, actually, even though I was writing before, I've felt like a real writer because I kind of feel I know what to do now, and it's so great when you find you've got this imagination. Like maybe I'll be cooking dinner, and suddenly I'll like, whoa, this idea will pop up because this world never leaves you. It's always this world that we've created in this village of all these like people that are ruthlessly trying to be best, and while solving these murders or hindering, the solving of these murders. It kind of never leaves you, and little ideas pop up from the strangest places. So I did do some training. I think that's one of the things that kind of made me feel not so confident when I was first doing it 5 years ago, because I kind of felt, I haven't trained, I haven't got any in screenwriting. I haven't got
the whole
But there was one woman at AMAW called Cynthia. Do you remember Cynthia? She was an amazing teacher, and I think she's still teaching.
Of course, I love LA. In fact, she's going to be coming on the show too,
that's amazing.
In May, Cynthia's going to come on. She's actually been doing. Cynthia Levin is a comedian, everyone, and we were so lucky to have a stand-up comedian who performs in Hollywood to come and coach us. I actually did her stand-up course. So it was so interesting to, start learning to walk around with a notepad and just notice there's a guy on the underground and he's eating a pack of butter, and just notice how everyone reacts, how it made you feel, and to start taking notes of the funny things that happen in your world. And you suddenly,
exactly.
And what I loved about it was it literally transformed my personal world, because I was always attuned to look out for the funny moments in life. So I'm really grateful for Cynthia for that. But yes, you were just introducing her to the audience. But yes, you were saying about Cynthia.
Well, I remember years ago in one of our classes, I'm not sure if you were there on this one or not, but she said to us, I want you to all come back and have written your own scenes. And she said, some people said, I've never written before, what do I do? And she said, well, look, just think of a real conversation that you've had that's affected you in some way. So maybe it's a conversation where you've had a row with someone, or you're splitting up with a partner, or you're having a deep conversation with a child, and honestly, everyone came back with amazing scenes, because as soon as you start to replay those conversations in your head, then you start to dramatically heighten them, and it was an amazing way for everyone to start writing. But I would say any actor that's frustrated with how things are going at the moment, or especially in lockdown, when all the theatres are still kind of shut, it's a great thing to have a go at, because you don't have to ever put it on anywhere, but you might find that you manage to create your own show or your own TV show, or I've never written for the theatre. I don't feel I want to write for the theatre, or could, because it's a different way of writing. I'm really happy writing for screen, but not so much a play or anything like that. But I think if you start with your characters, it just seems to. And if you can, like you were saying, base it in some truth, maybe the guy with the butter, you could start to explore.
Oh, yes,
where does he live? Who's he married to?
Yes. Well, that's a really good point. I actually started writing a comedy web series, and it was called Deep Shit. And I did hire a BBC director, and I got a lot of actors from Amma, involved, and we started filming things. But what I discovered later on was that I was trying to be in it as the actress, playing essentially a story of myself, and that for me didn't work. But I think the problem was because unless you're really well funded and you can pay a lead actress enough for them to stick around for the length of the web series, and there were 3 little series, I was afraid that we would start and someone might drop out. So that's why I did the lead part, but it didn't work. So if I ever did it again, I would just do the writing and the creating. But I mean, just hearing everything you're saying, it's exciting me to get back into the writing, because I feel like you could teach as well, even just from this amount of experience, because when we teach, we only need to know this much more than the person following. So even today, you're informing me so much with what you're saying, with what's their fear, what are they feeling inside, outside, because we write funny lines, but it doesn't give it depth. And what you're talking about really gives your characters depth. And I can understand why you're in your kitchen, making stuff, and you're like, oh yes, I've got this new scene. Do you just stop making dinner and run upstairs and just start writing?
Well, no. What I do have a notebook and I write things down. But if I forget to write it down, it's then really frustrating, because sometimes it's gone, and then I'm like, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've also found that it's been a gift that we didn't go with the other companies before, because actually lockdowns informed it quite a lot, because it's set in this tiny Wiltshire village, the back of beyond. It's the 20s. They haven't got, there's no internet, there's not so many phones, there's not so much transport, and these people are actually locked down and isolated. So we've actually fed a lot of what's happened to us, during lockdown, the isolation and also the mental health of people as well. We've kind of put in a lot, because if we're honest, I think everyone's had anxieties and up days and down days, and
absolutely,
so that's informed it quite a lot as well. I just loved it. It's been a joy. So fingers crossed we get greenlit.
I'm just instructing. Forgive me, I am listening, but I'm just instructing Gavin to make sure he shares your social media link.
That's it. Thank you.
And they're going to come up flashing across the screen, I imagine. So just so if you want to follow Tina, if you're really enjoying her conversation today, make sure you follow Tina on Instagram and Twitter, because I'm sure on her platform she'll be updating when she's next doing a show, whether it's on TV. And it sounds like if it's on HBO, it should be across the pond as well as England, so everyone can get to see it. So it's always really nice when you watch a show and you can say, oh, I know that actress. It's really, and it's also really interesting when you've seen someone live like this and then you see them in character. What character are you playing in the next two that come?
I can't, you see, they have these watertight contracts now that you can't divulge much of the plot. So I can say I'm playing a police officer type role in the Olivia Colman show, and in the other one, she's kind of, all I can really say is she's a big Dolly Parton fan. She's kind of quite, it's setting in Whitstable in Kent, so she's a bit more of a London girl, and she's got a warm heart, but she's very much into hoop earrings and leopard skin tights and stuff like that. And it's a really lovely role. So yeah.
But you've done such a broad range, because I've seen your photos in period dramas.
Yes, that was bizarre. And Bollywood. Wow. I mean, I suddenly got this.
I saw that
film.
How did you get cast in Bollywood?
That brilliant. Was I can't even remember. How did that happen? I know. An Indian friend of mine said they were looking for an actress to play the the mother of a famous Bollywood actress who I didn't know. And she thought I'd be great for it, but I had to audition in Hindi. And I don't speak Hindi, obviously. So I just thought, I'm just going to ask my Indian friend to take the lines for me, which she did. Yeah. So I just did the self-tape, and if it's something you really desperately want, sometimes you get a little bit nervous and you want to get it, it's not about getting it right, but we've all got that little thing in our heads, haven't we, sometimes? And because I thought I've not got a hope in hell of getting this, because they're going to go for someone who can really speak Hindi, that I just threw caution to the wind and just did it, and then I got the job. And it was such a joy. And when I saw when I met the actress, she was Indian, from the north of India. And I had a suntan at the time, and I was actually darker skinned than she was. And so it was a British mother, but living in India with an Indian father. And it was so amazing, because they were just so warm and lovely, and the food was incredible. Wow. They had these amazing curries, even for breakfast. I didn't have it for breakfast, but they had it for breakfast, and they gave us these platters with all these sections to put all this delicious food in, and it was just a joy again.
Well, it sounds like you've had a very exciting career so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you on TV. I can't wait to hear when the shows are out. It'll be a real pleasure to watch you on the screen. And thank you so much for coming in today, Tina. And despite all the hiccups and the live theatre of the show today, which is what it's all about, I hope it made you feel a bit at home, because maybe it feels a bit like being back in the theatre with all the mess going on.
No, it's lovely to see you again, because I haven't seen you for quite a while. So it's been really
a very long time. I'm guessing it must be 3 years at least, probably 4.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, my goodness.
Yeah. So I'm loving these live reunions with all my favorite creative rebels are coming on the show, and I love it. It's been really wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on. This is Tina Haas, everybody.
Thank you.
And I think Gavin's going to pull us in a new guest very soon. And today's guest, this is I hope you're loving the spontaneity of all the show today, guys, because this is completely unprepared. I had no idea what was happening today. We had no idea that Brandon would be in LA and that Gavin would be sick today. So this is complete improv. You're seeing live theater here on the show today. So I'm very excited if anyone's actually showed up. And please let me know what you're doing today and what you're excited about today. I'm a time traveler because I'm already many hours ahead of you. If you're in London, I'm an hour ahead. And if you're in America, I'm a few hours ahead. So I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a really good day. It's going to be a really, really good day. So our next guest coming on now very shortly is a grief expert who has been widowed twice and has a great sense of humor. And he's married to a funeral director. He says of himself, I am a grief therapist, author, speaker, and educator. He spent more than a decade with hospice, and he is also twice widowed, but now he's married to a funeral director who's also a member of D Mort and has been deployed twice in the pandemic. He's teaching school staff to help with grief and cope with people's losses. Well, I'm glad he has a sense of humor, because it sounds like a very, very heavy subject, but I'm sure he's going to enlighten us today. So I'm looking forward to having our guest on the show. I'm sure Gavin will let me know when he's coming.
There we are.
Hello.
Hello.
I thought you were.
Here's the first surprise. I'm a she.
Yes. I'm
And
sorry.
I do have a good sense of humor.
I
Yes.
don't know anything. This is all very ad lib. It's lovely to meet you. Jill, is it?
That is, yes. Same here.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Suze. Nice to meet you.
That was a big thing to follow. An actress who's been in Bollywood. That's a lot. And here I am, just the grief expert. But yeah, no, it's not going to be heavy, because it doesn't do well to speak about grief in a heavy approach. It just doesn't.
Yeah. And how did you become an expert in grief? Is it through your own personal experiences, or is it something that you were drawn to study before that?
I have done hospice for a long time,
Wow.
which was actually started in England. I'm sure you know that. That's where it was restarted. And I also have been, of course, widowed twice. And I have worked with grieving families and in a private practice as a therapist. I work with families who are expecting a loss and people who are expecting to be dying, and then with folks who are in the grief process. And they find me because they find me online, and they don't want someone who's going to sit and look sad with them and tell them grief is going to last forever. They want a rebel, and they want someone who's not going to tell them they have to grieve forever, or that the measure of how big your loss is how long you grieve, because it's not healthy and it's not good for them. And it's definitely not who I am.
That's amazing. Well, I interview creative rebels, so I'm glad that you're a rebel, because that's just perfect. So
It seems to be a good fit. Should I tell you my story? Would that help?
yes, but I'm just reading your bio, and I was like, why did I think you were a man?
Because I had wives.
Huh? Oh, is that what it says?
I think so, probably.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I just come across like.
It's just funny that I'm just wondering why I assumed that a grief expert would be a man. I don't know, or maybe it's that, I don't know. So I'm just curious if there was anything.
Nothing. Okay. So I not only was I working for hospice, but when my first wife Linda was dying, she'd had breast cancer, and then she recovered, and she wasn't supposed to. And then we got 10 more amazing years and adopted some children and went on with our lives. And then she ended up with pulmonary fibrosis as a result of the chemotherapy, which is not that unusual. And eventually we had hospice because I asked for it, because the doctors wouldn't give it to us, because nobody wants to say, we can't do anything more for you, which is not fair. And while she was on hospice and I was still working, the hospice nurses would come and go while I was gone. And there was one in particular she was quite drawn to, and they became like best of friends. They had the same background. They had the same work ethic. Linda worked until about 5 months before she died. She was only bedbound for a week. And she got super close to Casper. We had a hospice nurse named after a friendly ghost. And by the time Linda died, she had told Casper she needed to come back and marry me. She told me I needed to marry Casper. She told our minister she needed to marry the two of us. She told all her friends and family that she was not going to die unless she knew she had set this up, because she was not leaving me behind with 3 teenage girls who were all a year apart. And this was not going to happen. She wasn't going to die. And we, of course, told her to shut up, because we are not on Fantasy Island. For those of you who remember that show, like I was expecting Mr. Rourke to show up, right? And to hear the plane. So she died. Casper was there the day she died. We'd already gone to see a funeral director, and Linda had planned her own cremation, and she'd written her own obituary. Linda was an ER nurse. Nurses bond to each other, and nurses, they take things like it is. especially ER nurses, because they see death all the time. So we had done everything to get ready. We'd had 3 years. And so the funeral director comes in and takes her away. Remember that was Stacy. And Casper was there. Casper came to her funeral. Casper came to her interment. We eventually went out for coffee sooner than anyone would have liked. So we did it secretly because right after I was widowed, a good friend of mine who'd been widowed the year before took me out for a coffee and said, you need to know there are widow rules and you can't break them. Because if you break them, you will never be allowed to forget it. And it's true. There are widow rules. Did you know there were?
No, but I'm not liking the sound of them because I'm a rebel, so I like to break rules. So
that's exactly what happened.
The next part of the story is that you just went and broke the rules.
Right, because then it's like, now I have to change these. So the rules are you can't be seen in public with anyone you might be thought of as dating for the first year. You can't smile too much.
Just a year.
Sometimes it's more than that. It depends on the person making them up.
5 or 10.
Might be 5, might be 10. How dare you? Don't smile too much because then you're having too much fun. But don't be too sad because then you're going to make people feel sad when they're around you.
Don't say when you're grieving. Gosh,
right. Don't say her name because then people will feel uncomfortable. But don't forget to say her name because then they'll think you forgot her.
Great comedy. I love it. I love the way you show this. Is absolutely wonderful. I think there's a stand-up in there.
There certainly is. I can't wait to do that too. And then the other thing was, if you're going to go out with anyone, make sure you go at least 30 miles away because, every town is a small town, even if it's a big city. Right?
This is great. I'm having my own taboo moment where we're talking about death and grief, and I can't help laughing. It's like
there are all kinds of rules, and it's so silly, but they are the rules, and it's what people expect, and it's basically what makes other people comfortable.
Yeah, it's not about you. No one's really caring about you and your pain and what you need, which is maybe the comfort and company of a new companion.
It is. And actually, there's research that says that when someone has been through a long illness with a dying partner, an intimate partner, if they've done the anticipatory grief ahead of time, you've said all the goodbyes, which after 3 years of pulmonary fibrosis, you have lots of time, and 3 years of breast cancer before that, even more time. You're pretty much done with the majority of the grief.
Yeah.
Right at about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
The worst of it is over. The problem is, and that's where the widow rules come in, everyone else has just realized that they are dying the day they die, no matter how many times you tell them.
Yes. And I can see there why, this judgment comes in because,
I'm not done grieving. How dare you be done grieving?
Yeah.
But I'm tired, and I haven't had. Linda had pulmonary fibrosis. She couldn't even roll over because her heart would slow down more. And when you can't breathe, you choose between eating and breathing or kissing and breathing. You can't do both.
No.
So not that I didn't love her tremendously. We were married 23 years. I did, but at the end, I was just plain worn out. And she was right about Casper. She was very much alike. We hit it off like gangbusters.
How sweet of her. Stacy, you said her name was.
Casper was my second wife.
But the first was Stacy?
First one was Linda.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, Linda.
That's okay.
It was so sweet of Linda to have maybe intuitively seen a suitable connection there. And being able to see a match, but how beautiful in her own heart to be able to say in advance, I want you to be loved and taken care of. And I've already sorted that out for you with my mentor.
I've assigned someone, and she has a 3-page bucket list. Casper was at the top. It was a very long bucket list for me to finish. So, and she, it was right. She was right. They made good friends. They ate chocolate secretly when the other nurse was saying you should be eating vegan. And really, she's dying. She can have whatever she wants. So they drank chocolate sodas and ate M&Ms and did all the things and talked all the talks. And so when Casper and I met for coffee, we didn't tell anyone because we knew people would talk. And we sat outside. That was mistake number 1 at a cafe in our downtown. And every single person I think I knew walked by. and every single person who worked with her walked by, and they, right? Can you imagine? And they all stood
always
there.
like that. It's always like that in life. The day where you're like, I'm just going to go out practically in my pajamas will be the day that you meet everyone.
Absolutely. And not hair done, not makeup on, all of that. So we had coffee a few times. We had dinner secretly. We had to move to a different town. We dated secretly for a while because you couldn't tell anyone. I put her name in code in my cell phone because I had teenage daughters. And God help you if they see your phone light up and it's a name that they don't know. You are a teenage daughter. You know about this, right?
No,
what are you doing?
Yes, I mean it's incredible, isn't it? How judgmental people are, and how we live our lives based around pleasing other people rather than just pleasing ourselves. Like, and the other thing that surprises me is that it's not people's. People aren't excited about your happiness, and instead of thinking like, I'm thinking, the first thing I'm thinking is, how lucky is this woman to have met love twice, like one after the other? So I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. But, instead of focusing on, it shouldn't be happening, focus on like, what a miracle, like, and what a beautiful story. I mean, I think the story is so beautiful that, one partner introduces you to the next partner. It's a movie. Where are the screenwriters?
Right, that I keep waiting. I mean, it was nice to know I didn't have to introduce Linda to Casper, because Casper already knew Linda, and she knew my kids. So if you're going to get involved with me and you already know my teenage girls and all the dogs and the cats and the bird. Oh, look, the cat. See?
Talking of cats. He
had 5. What is the cat? Oh, look at that tail. Oh, hello. Oh, my goodness. I have 4 sleeping poodles around me. I'm hoping they're all going to be quiet. Right, all the life.
He's really enjoying the conversation. It's like, this is an interesting story.
Because they're intuitive, right? He heard grief and he's like, here I am, Mom. Let me pet you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we dated. The kids eventually caught on to us, and before we announced we were dating, they started calling her at night while I was working, and I'd come home from work late and her car was in the driveway, which was weird. And they had called her and said it was a medical emergency, and it was like, I cut my finger or I had a headache. They were testing. She passed the test. And when we openly announced we were dating, then we got all kinds of, very unhappy comments. And that's when I decided it wasn't worth fighting. I was going to be my own rebel. And those who came with me on the journey came with. And those who needed to move to the outer circle, who had been on the inner circle, they could move there. And if they decided they wanted to come back, they would need to ask permission.
Mm-hmm. They could creep
right?
back.
Creep back, right. And say you're sorry because that wasn't nice.
No.
And we had 6 really good months. And then we were on the lanai in Hawaii with the kids. I'd taken them on a trip to Hawaii that Linda wanted to take with them, and she died before we could. And her coffee cup went flying across the lanai. And that was very unlike her. And I said, what is going on? And she said, I don't know. I had these weird dreams last night. I couldn't tell if it was morning or day when I woke up. I'm hearing things. My hands are shaking. It was just like that. And 3.5 years later, she died of Lewy body dementia, which is why Robin Williams took his life.
Oh, I thought he had bipolar.
He was depressed, but he died because he had Lewy body dementia, and he knew what was coming, and he couldn't tolerate just how crazy it makes you. Because Lewy body is a different dementia. It causes you to lose your memory and then get it back, and you remember that you couldn't remember. And it causes you to be psychotic, and then you remember you were psychotic.
Oh, I have to say, speaking of grief, I remember when I found out that Robin Williams had died, I was living in London and I cried 3 times on the London Underground. And I had no idea this person that I have never met, who doesn't know me, had impacted me so much. it was the only thing I could explain was that we were kindred spirits, or it made me realize that you don't even need to know someone to grieve their loss if they've impacted you. Or even, I think in this case, there was this feeling as if I knew him, and wow, it affected me a lot. I cannot explain it. I cannot explain it, but it affected me so much. So.
He was so genuine in how he came across and portrayed. And the people he portrayed were emotive and, caught us up in their emotions. Yeah. And he died of the same illness just a little bit before Casper did. And the day he died, according to the reports, he put his watches in a sock and drove them to a friend's house. He shouldn't have been driving because they were talking too much. And that's not unusual for Lewy body.
Oh.
Yeah, we would get messages from our television, from NCIS, the television show, and Jethro would tell us what our orders were for the day. Night was different. It was the same as day. We were back in her childhood, and then we were present again, and she would say, I was gone again, wasn't I? And it took a long time to get the diagnosis because doctors are not efficient or proficient with dementia, most of them. And when they start hearing memory loss, they immediately say Alzheimer's, which is not true. And a lot of Alzheimer's patients have Lewy body too.
Right.
So it was a little bit crazy town. And I finally found a doctor, and I would write him notes before our appointments and say, this is what's really going on. And then she'd walk in and pretend everything was fine. But you could tell it wasn't, because when you have Lewy as well as Parkinson's, which comes with Lewy, your face develops a mask and you no longer have any emotion.
Wow.
And that happened early on. It can look like someone's angry all the time, but it's just, there's no connection between brain and face. And so there's no emotion showing.
And do they, because I'm very interested in my own personal life about finding the origin of illness, which is sometimes, I believe that a lot of illness are connected, like have an emotional connection at their core, maybe a trauma, that is expressing itself later on in life. Was there, did you know that if there was any sort of connection or any reason in your understanding why this came on, or was it just, never understood?
Lewy is not a very well studied disease. Alzheimer's gets all the research. All the other dementias get what's left over from what they learned from Alzheimer's.
Which ones are cool, which ones get sympathy, which ones get stigmas. It's all like,
which ones get the purple ribbon and which ones don't. Yeah. Right. And that's not to diminish Alzheimer's. It's a horrible disease. No. But you've got a wonderful guy in England named Norm Mack who has described his entire process with Lewy and has written a book about it and writes a daily blog about it. And when he's not present, he comes back and says, this is what happened. So he describes what it's like to have Lewy and to be gone. We think that it might be related to the fact that her family were sharecroppers here in the Deep South, and that there were a lot of chemicals that were used on the tobacco products that they were growing and dropped on the kids while they were working in the fields before and after school. Certainly there was a lot of trauma because when you're a sharecropper, things are very unstable.
Right. I don't know anything. Sharecroppers, I'm afraid.
No, sharecroppers move place to place to place.
Right.
So
right.
I'm guessing it's related to that. There is some link to Parkinson's and one of the crop dusting chemicals that they've just found. Hard to tell.
Yeah.
Really hard to tell.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how did after these experiences, was that what led you into becoming, an expert in grief and
what happened was while Casper was dying, I had a smaller group helping me because people vote with their feet, right? Every time someone dies, you lose people in the periphery. Someone always disappears and other people come in. So people went out, and in came Stacy, the funeral director. And she was watching the blog I was writing while Casper was sick and dying. And she said, I think you need more help. I'm going to stop by in the evening on the way home from the mortuary, and you can go take a nap. And so she started becoming part of the small little crew we had helping. And she was there to the day Casper died as well. And then after Casper died, we ended up dating and marrying. And yeah, I keep them close.
Have you written a book, Jill?
Huh?
Have you written a book?
I have. It's called The Rebellious Widow.
Oh, amazing. I don't know if Gavin, if you're still there, can you bring up some kind of spread on the book? Tell me the name again.
The Rebellious Widow.
Oh, how cool. I love this. I'm just gonna.
It's got little bits of my life. It's a lot about how to get through the loss of a partner and the dying process, and how to get through the grief and grow from it, not sit in it, which is clearly what I do.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel like it would be, even hearing about it, I can feel myself tearing up inside. You know, I can feel like it would affect me deeply. And I haven't had many. I've had 3 friends die, but I haven't had many, sort of family members or anything die. Here we go. Look how great Gavin is doing this for us. Oh, how cool. Go back. The Rebellious Widow, A Practical Guide to Love and Life After Loss. I really love that title. It's lovely. That's awesome. That's really nice. That's fab. I want to read that. Yeah, like I said, I had a friend that died, and I actually ended up doing an art exhibition a year later to sort of honor his death, because he took a load of photos that, no one had ever seen him as a professional. And so, and yeah, it was,
what a gift.
Yeah, it was really a gift for me. And, but it turned out that no one knew that actually he had been supporting a lot of people. He was a recovered drug addict. And in his personal life, behind the scenes, he had been supporting so many young people that when it came to his funeral, and I wasn't there because I was already in London, and in the Dominican Republic, the funerals happen within, 2-4 days. But they did, he was a surfer, and they had this big gathering in the water, and apparently it was just overwhelming, the amount of people that came, because in secret he had been helping all these people. It was just
what a tribute to him.
Yeah, really, really, really beautiful. But yes, it's I think grief is something, particularly in the UK. I can't really speak for America, but particularly in the UK, we have these expressions like stiff upper lip, and
be strong,
grin and bear it.
Right?
Or just there's a conditioning around not showing weakness, or even I'm just trying to think how my family might respond. Sort of like, don't go over the top might be one expression, as in don't be too sad, or don't cry too much, sort of like
no ugly crying.
That grief, don't supersize it, and it's I know that in countries like India, they have a bit more of a process, with grief, where the funerals go on for days. I think, it's not just sort of an hour ceremony and that's all you get. So do you now help people in what capacity do you now help people?
Well, in my private practice as a therapist, I work with folks who are expecting a death, people who are chronically ill, who might become terminally ill, and with a lot of grievers, of course. Yeah. I also teach therapists online, and I used to teach them in person, but COVID. I'm hoping I'm going to get to Hawaii and get to teach in person again in July. That would be my.
We're grieving that as well. We're grieving the loss of freedom.
Might as well do it in Hawaii, right? And I teach them how to do grief better, because therapists are taught, the same stuff they were taught 50 years ago about 5 stages, not about recovery. And then I do a grief chat online on Fridays with a friend who does grief. We just shoot the breeze and talk about grief and laughter and finding joy again. And then I write children's books about grief and loss, with stuff for big people in the back about how to talk to kids about grief. I've also been helping schools get ready for grief, because we're going back in session here, and there are a lot of kids with a lot of losses. right? So I'm sort of all over the place because I really love grief. I know that sounds weird, but I'm married to a funeral director. We hang out in the mortuary in the evenings, and then I do grief during the day. And it's just who we are. We talk about advanced directives, for fun with people. That's just who I am.
Well, I think another way of looking at grief is about letting go.
And about growing.
Yeah,
right? We get to grow through it.
Yeah, we let go, we surrender, and then we make space for the new. So there's also an element of rebirth, because such a deep, intense experience is going to, so it's like everything in nature, forests burn to the ground, and then new ones.
The seeds grow.
Yeah, but I think we have a disconnected relationship with death and with grief. And I think that's why we don't know how to process it and how to recover from it. So it sounds like you're doing very important work. It's really...
I enjoy it. I like reaching out to people.
Yeah.
The blog is still being passed around a little bit, which has helped some people get diagnosed with Lewy body. It's on Blogger. I would have to actually send it to you, but it helped people get diagnosed with Lewy body. I'm a social worker by nature, so any place that I can fit in and do something. I work with dementia as well, and I run a dementia support group online. So it's, how do you get people to the point where they no longer feel like they have to grieve forever, and get them to the point where they can see that rebirth, and you can take the person who died with you and move into a new life and include them in it, but not have to live your life as a memorial to them. Right?
Absolutely. And do you find that a lot of people suffer from guilt when it comes to moving on, because they feel guilty, as if they should still be grieving, almost like it's disrespectful to be happy again?
Grievers prefer terms like, I'm finished with my grieving and I'm moving into my new life. The moving on makes them feel like I'm leaving my loved one behind. Right. So we talk about, you're taking your loved one with you. They feel guilty from the moment the person died. That's guilt and fear are the two most common emotions when it comes to loss. And yes, they feel guilty when they choose to move into a new life, largely because other people impose that on them. Right? They need boundaries so they can say, no, this is my choice, and I'm going to be that rebel, and I'm not going to listen to these rules, and I get to decide where my life is going. Because when you lose someone you love, you lose all your power. You have no control over that. So you do get to have control over where your life goes. Right?
And if, for example, so often I think of my father, because he's in his late 70s, and, with everything that's going on in the world as well. And I don't know whether I will be able to see him. Well, I live in a completely different country, and we don't know with the situation going on. And I think my biggest fear is that if something did happen, that I will always have this guilt. Like again, it's the word should.
All the shoulds.
Yeah, the punishing should word, which is, I should have gone to see him. I should have made more effort. I should have made it a priority. I shouldn't have taken it for granted that I would see him, that kind of thing. It's almost like I'm already rehearsing. I'm already preparing those fears. And what would you say to that? How have you helped people when that's come up for them?
If there's someone who's out of area, out of country, which is not uncommon here either, I facilitate them doing some things online with them so that they can maintain that connection. What's important is having the conversations, not necessarily being there in person. If, however, you were to feel like you really needed to be there in person, I would suggest that as soon as things open, you go, so you have that time to have those important conversations and to tell him all the things you're grateful for. Apologize for the things you did when you were a teenager and he didn't know, because now it's safe to tell him, because you get to go back to the UK and avoid punishment. I
was quite a boring teenager. I was a ballet dancer then, so it was much later. I was a teenager much later.
Okay, so you don't have to do that. You can tell him thank you for the ballet lessons. Right? And tell him all the things you're going to remember about him and how you're going to take him with you. how he's always going to be part.
Well, I'm already crying. I don't. It's funny because my family are English, so they don't really do anything sentimental. Or, even I'm just trying to imagine having this conversation.
We can change that.
Well, I'm like a child. I can just cry, in a second. But they see it as being very dramatic. If you express a lot of feelings.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because you can't. In my experience, you can't grieve and not have emotion. Right?
Yeah,
the two are connected.
Once someone's gone, that's the thing. You might be a bit shy to say these things when they're alive because you know that they're not very emotional people themselves. They don't communicate in that way. So you think, I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. But then the thought that, if I leave it, I'm going to be very uncomfortable that I didn't get to have that conversation. Yeah.
Exactly right. And that's what I do with grievers. If they haven't had that time, then we do those conversations between us. And I work with them on a process of saying goodbye so that they can be grateful for the things they had and they can apologize for the things they should have said. And they can talk about what apologies they thought they should have had. Because sometimes there are those things. Nobody who dies is perfect. We turn them into angels. But, Linda was no angel. She used to, when she knew she was dying, she used to go pull our little one, who was not even a teenager at the time, out of school on her Spider motorcycle, which is the one with the 2 wheels in the front and the one in the back. And she would sneak her out of school and they'd go off to an arcade and play video games all day. And the school's calling me and saying, Chloe's not at school. And I said, you're crazy. I dropped her off. I know she's there. Get your act together. I found out at the funeral that Chloe had been escaping school with Mama Linda. So, right. Those things. Those are the things you process after someone is gone. She was not an angel, but she was a delight. And I'm grateful she did those things. But boy, did she make me look stupid to that school. I was yelling at them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Right.
It's been so interesting talking to you. I'm so glad that they mentioned that you had a sense of humor because
right.
I think that's the assumption. I think that's why people are scared of grief, of death, or any subjects around that because it feels scary. It feels. I think the other thing is that it's a bit like when you go to a funeral and you're afraid you're going to laugh because. I mean, I know for myself when I was a child, if things got serious around the dinner table, I would just suddenly get the giggles and it would be over something like someone saying, can you pass the cream? That's not even funny. And I would just giggle, but I think it was to release the tension because it's so serious. And I think, I'm afraid of those situations where you're laughing in the wrong place, and
and that's where that's where grief needs to have some humor. That's where a grief therapist should laugh. And I tell my clients, we're going to laugh in here. And they look relieved because they can't laugh in public.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I was a hospice social worker, we would laugh. We would tell stories. The dying person would laugh with us. And it made other people a little crazy. But it relieves the tension and it also reconnects us.
Yes,
and that's important. And that's how we learn to grieve well.
Yes, and it lightens everything up and it makes it normal. And I think it's like the Irish, they it's not like they have these funerals, they have these wakes, where everyone dances and laughs and tells silly stories and,
as we should.
Yeah, because I mean, I couldn't think of anything more depressing than someone going to my funeral and wearing black and all being serious and,
at Linda's funeral, they wore Angels baseball shirts or Hawaiian shirts. And I told stories and made everybody laugh. And I found one person in the back ahead of time and said, if I start to cry, I'm going to lock eyes on you so I can pull it together for that moment. And we served Hawaiian shave ice and I had a chocolate bar. Sorry, that's our old poodle in the back. We just adopted him and he's got a collapsing trachea. I apologize. He'll stop in a sec. Yeah, we adopt old poodles, not young poodles. They call us and say, there's a sick dog. Would you come get him?
We're like, yeah,
of course, on our way. Come on, babe, stop. I'll just talk over him. So yeah, we do funerals to be fun because we want people to remember them for who they were.
Yes.
I don't like somber funerals. I know some people need them. Right. Mandy's like, I'm not going to have black for my wake. I keep threatening to buy. We have blow up Irish pubs here. Did you know that? They're like bounce houses, but you can blow them up and put them in your yard. I keep saying I'm going to buy one after COVID and I'm going to take it house to house and we're going to have wakes. That's just me.
I love it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Right.
I definitely think there's a movie in this, and I definitely think you should think about the screenplay.
If I knew anyone who did them, I would. I live in Southern California and I don't know anyone.
We had Tina on and she was talking all about, and Manny says there'll be no black. Oh, sorry, that went so fast. Here we go. There'll be no black. There'll be no black or wake for me when I go. Good
no
for you.
Fun wake.
Yeah, we'll have like Sherry, she says, grief sucks. My mother's was the hardest. My downward spiral into the rabbit hole started then. Dad's was not as bad. We knew it was coming, and I learned how to deal with death better at that time. Sorry for your loss, Sherry. Do you? And what advice would you give to Sherry just on that score?
I would tell Sherry we probably need to work a little bit on the saying goodbye to her mom and what things got left behind so that she hasn't had a chance to say, and to be able to remember her mom for who she was, and to remember that sometimes we don't get a lot of warning or any warning. COVID, we certainly haven't had any warning, and that in those circumstances we need to do the work ourselves to say the words that they should have said.
And do you recommend them doing this in writing, just a letter that you maybe burn in the fire, or would you do this in a session with someone and support them with it?
I do a whole process we write about each of those topics, and then together they construct a letter to say goodbye, and then they read it out loud to me.
Oh, I love it. And do you have a contact if anyone wants to have a session with you? Is that something you do?
I can do grief coaching. I can't do grief therapy out of the state of California, but you can reach me through my website, which is JillJohnsonYoung.com.
Say that again,
JillJohnsonYoung.com.
Okay, I'm just going to put it down, and maybe our lovely Gavin behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm easy to find. If you Google me, you will find me. I guarantee it, because there's only one Jill Johnson Young anywhere. That hyphenated name made it unique unto the world. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this story. I think it's absolutely amazing. And if there's anything else you want to share, then please feel free. I'm enjoying it so much. But
thank you for having me. It's been delightful. I love meeting creative rebels because most people won't call themselves rebels, and those who do, we got to stick together. And however we rebel.
I believe so. Yeah, I'm starting. I'm actually at the moment rebranding my YouTube, and it's going to be called Creative Revolution. So,
love that. Love that. Mandy just said, I put in my will, I want a party to remember my life.
I put in my will that I want a party to remember my life. Wow, I don't have a will.
Uh-oh. Have you done your advance directives?
What's this?
This is what happens if I'm found unconscious. What do I want you to do?
Oh, no, I haven't. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. This is your website. I love it.
That's the website.
JohnsonYoung.com. Glad to have you here. Glad to be here. This is great. Books, programs, tools, resources. Wow, this is so organized. I love it. It's beautiful. I
have young people who keep it organized for me. I tell them what to put up, and then they do this because that's not me.
And there's the make a booking at the bottom of the page, everyone. So if you do want to have a session with Jill, you can. It's lovely.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love it. I have loved talking to you. It's been fantastic. Maybe I'll invite you onto my show as well if you'll come.
I would love to. And if you meet a screenwriter, put us together.
Oh yes, I'll make sure. I think it's a wonderful story. I think it's a beautiful story of. I think the thing I love is the love that came, and I have to be honest, I'm a little bit jealous because I'm still waiting for mine. But it's like
it's kind of incredible to have 3 people love you.
I love the love story, how, you know, how they all knew each other and they were all linked and it came one after the other. For me, this is so beautiful. I mean, you know, this is very Hollywood. I keep doing this today. This is very, very Hollywood.
It is kind of that, and it's unusual, but it's so nice to know that I don't have to introduce them to each other. Everybody knew everybody. And so I can, you know, our focus is not about Linda and Casper at the house, but they're part of the fabric of the house. Right.
I love it.
And that's how it should be, because that's where I got to who I am.
Yeah. And such deep stories, you know, that went on. There's just so many things. It's like Tina, who was my guest just before you came on. She's an actress who's been in lockdown and discovered her writing ability. And so, you know, just asking certain questions like, what is this character afraid of? But, you know, in your case, if you were working with a writer, you would know all those things. So it's not like they would even have to make it up. You'd be able to tell them so many things, from what was their favorite food to what was their weirdest habit, or, you know,
or stealing the child out of elementary school on a motorcycle and not telling me.
All these things are so beautiful. So I think there's a lovely movie in there. I think that would be awesome. So,
we should be rebels together. Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And we don't know what's good.